This is the Hellenic American project, Nicholas Alexiou, and in our special features, Greek American poets in their own voice. We're very pleased and thankful having tonight's poetry reading by a friend who lives not far away from New York, in Buffalo, and Mr. Perry Nicholas, and he's going to read from his newest and older books of poetry and tell us a few things about the poems. Perry, we welcome you to the Hellenic American Project, and we're looking forward to your reading.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited. Kalispera, everyone. I'm Perry Nicholas. I am an English professor at CUNY at Erie in Buffalo, New York. I should probably tell you my father was born here in the States, but my mother was born in Ignusa, Greece, a very small island near Chios. And what I thought I'd do tonight is read some poems that are kind of influenced by my Greek American upbringing. I thought that would be appropriate. The poems will come from probably 6 books total, just a couple poems from each one. I've written 3 full-length books, 5 chapbooks, and I even did 2 CDs, which was a lot of fun. So I think we should jump right into it. Nico, you think?
Yes, by all means, go ahead.
Okay. Greeks have a word for it. Greeks have the perfect word, savura, or anchor, to describe the way some people try to wrap their problems around you, pull you down into the eddies of their insecurities. They can't seem to stay afloat, so they entice you overboard with their guilt. Today, I feel bogged down by people. No one in this coffee shop notices, though I'm sure it's written all over my face. Hiding behind the lip of this too hot coffee, my eyes mist, pencil pushing away the burdens. Liquids can be heavier than solids. I learned about it in Mrs. Stewart's 2nd grade class. I remember the concept from when I was a slouching boy, alone in the back of her science class, playing with Greek prefixes out of boredom, never really aware a word might encompass both the object on a boat and the tug of human troubles. Liquids assume the shape of their containers, but even if you only want to float along unnoticed, water can squeeze you so tight the pressure makes your ears pop. The next poem is influenced by Konstantin Cavafy, who is always one of my favorite poets, and really he talks about the paradoxes in his own life. And then I tried to make a contemporary sonnet out of it. And it's the title poem of my book, What the World Sees. The epigraph for the poem is Cavafy speaking. Where could I live better? Below, the brothel caters for the flesh. And there is the church which forgives sin. And there's a hospital where we die. Then I will be what the world sees. Winters and springs have passed, piggybacked like you and I. Now it's time to separate. Unfair it seems, for seasons and Fili to be pried apart. I know this, and you feel it too. I'll never make it back to the island. I'll die here in the back room of public works, or in a swivel chair in the windowless office of a college. I expect that. So do you. Someplace private where you loved me. It doesn't matter who I'm writing this for or where this bottled little song washes up. I will change as change is mandated. I'm a man of nearly 70 summers, hurdling walls of waves. I thought I had found something. I'll let you free. Then I will be what the world sees. My father was not an educated man. He'd never finished high school, really. He was back and forth between the States and Greece, and he had to take care of his family when he was very young, when he was 16 years old. So he never finished Greece school. But when he came here and settled, he became a painter, bridges, steel, that type of thing. And then he started his own business. He became a painting contractor. But he did teach me certain lessons that I always remember. And I can still hear his voice in my head. Process analysis. My father, so long in heaven, showed me how to sing out loud, laugh without regret, and how to fold drop cloths at the end of a job. First, take one hand in your hands, stretching the canvas material taut between you. Second, make an initial fold down the middle, touching the two corners together. Resist the temptation to walk toward your father, he who gave you breath, as he repeats his usual, Μια φορά ακόμα, παιδί μου. One more time, my child. Fold again and let it drop to the ground. Close the gap between you, for now, by rolling it up. Finally, forget all the times that didn't go smoothly, the nights he came slurring home. Hold tight to the rituals of your life. One day, small corners, all you'll have. Remember his voice in case he disappears from your dreams. Μια φορά ακόμα, παιδί μου. 2012 was the last time I was in Greece. And it was interesting because it was the first time I had been back in 30 years. So imagine that, ever since I was a young man. And it was interesting because I spent a week in Athens teaching creative writing at the New York College in Athens. And then I went and stayed on the small island, Ignusa, where my mother was born, and actually stayed in her old house for a week. And that was quite an eye-opening experience. So this one, when I stayed in Chios, going to the island, I stayed in a place called Hotel Philoxenia. The hotel keeper, Marika, does everything she can to make this place what its name suggests, friend to strangers. I'm an odd Odysseus, dragging a suitcase up 100 stairs, huffing, embarrassed I'm still searching at my age. I just as soon hole up in my cabin than fight my way along cobblestone paths with half the heart I had when I played soccer here as a boy. I hesitate to hold on to Marika's arm, since men don't touch married women in Greece, but she senses I'm struggling, takes my elbow anyway, stares straight ahead. We don't need to say anything. For this final leg, she's a silent figurehead guiding her sailor home. When I stayed in the small house on the island, there were neighbors next door, and they did not know who I was, and they didn't realize that I kind of understood what they were saying. So I would sit out on the balcony at night and listen to their conversations, and was particularly interested when the subject turned to me, the Americano next door. And so I thought I would write this poem about it. And it's called The Loud Greek Family Next Door. Ande bre malaka, fera mia bira. The loud Greek family continues on into the night, drowning out wild cats and dogs, motor scooters in the wind-cut distance. They get bored with the upcoming election, start on a new topic, me, quiet Americano staying in the house next door. They laugh. Maybe the mosquitoes will devour him. His mother lived in the house, left for the States, and died. This draws some interest. His father's family from here too. Now some respect. Looks just like his first cousin with more hair. They sidestep to their eldest son, who spent some time in New York, London, ending up back here on the island working for a bank. But he could never afford a trip like this one. Back to me. Why is he here alone? Not realizing the American behind the shutters understands Greek. Mocking again, Fenete san pusti. He looks like he must be gay. You can hear a lot of things in the quiet night of an island in Greece. When I was there on the island, a man approached me with a sailor's hat, and he told me I knew your father. And at first I was very skeptical because it's been a long time since my father passed away. But then he told me some details, and I realized that he did. And so that's what this story is about. It's called Kaptan Dimitris, a good man. I eat alone by the aquamarine Aegean, when up steps a large limping man with typical captain's hat and says, I knew your father. I answer shortly, are you sure? But then he continues to describe my father's accident in the States in '51. No one could have known these details. The next day drives me along the narrow, scary roads, an ancient tour guide. Well, I pray he not take a hand off the wheel, spin me off into the waiting sea. Finally, I ask him directly, time running out, what do you remember most about him? Was he happy after that? A good man? A pause seems to last another 50 years. Smiling at me sideways, slightly impatient, the clicking of his kumboloya stopping. How could he not be? He surprises me. Look at you. Well, you could see it was an interesting visit. I think I'll end reading from this book with a little love story or a love song. This is called Ithila Nasupo. I wanted to tell you. The wind blowing sideways through the terrace scatters the stars as they battle for my attention. I count only two standing. I wanted to tell you this tonight. I fell for you in Greece. You weren't even here. Azure is here. Impatient fig trees are here. Unreliable fairies, overripe teenagers, annoying motorbikes, crying cats, empty tavernas. Should I extend my leave another stanza? Think hard about how you'll respond. I've been meaning to show you this shuffling sky, but you're there in that sad city I left behind. I must be the only man writing in this world, the one person breathing without electronics, creating constancy under an unrelenting moon. Agapi, I just wanted to tell you, Ithila Nasupo. So we'll put away the Greek poem. Excuse me one second. I think we should get a mother-inspired poem in there. I wrote this poem on Mother's Day while I was watching TV, a story about Mars and water on Mars. And I should clarify, my mother spoke very poor English, very broken English, but she always seemed to get her message across through the tone. And so this is kind of what I remember about her voice. Water on Mars. I remember when we used to talk mornings before I lifted off to school, imprints of your words on my mind. now dried up like water on Mars. Your voice, a confident, foreign robotic barking like the men in a ground control station as they direct the astronauts. Mine, a staticky code, searching to find a common frequency with you. I didn't know what language to use. You always sounded so right. And when men landed on the moon, I wish it was me, bouncing light and free, an unfathomable distance between us and our home. These days, only your faint tracks. I barely hear the sound of water flowing, or you questioning why I'd want to travel anywhere that far in the first place. I'm going to skip ahead to my second last book, and Nico has a copy of this called Why I Learned to Spell, with the Greek alphabet on it and then reversed on the back. And it was an interesting experience. Let me go to, I had the unfortunate experience to read poetry in an Americana bar. Now you have to picture the bar, right? It was baseball hats and USA hats and T-shirts and all that. And don't ask how I ended up there, but I ended up reading poetry there, and it was not a good experience. I could not help feel more out of place. So I wrote this poem when I went home, and it's really a tribute to the hyphenated American, the Greek American, the Jewish American, the Italian American, which is what we used to be called in the old days. The poem is called A Greek American Reads Poetry at an Americana Bar. You don't have to understand language, just the concept or theme. It's the same for everyone. Life, an uplifted glass, an overturned beer bottle. A great deal depends on what type of hat you wear. If it's USA you advertise, then you may not want me sharing my heart. If it's the logo of a torn down plant, you may believe I stole your job. I know why you love her anthem, but don't you hear my struggle singing? Is my hair too slick? Style not white enough? Langston Hughes once said, I too sing America. This next one is actually going to be in a journal with Dan Georgiakis. I noticed that you have him here on the website, and it's really a toast to the new year. Let's say Greeks have a saying where they say "Zoe semas" or "life to us," and that's where this poem came from. Zoe semas. With all due respect to the dead, life to us. Zoe semas as we nurse our wounds, stuff ourselves silly, curse out football, soup up sports cards, apologize to neighbors, stalk our grass, dismantle our walls. Zoe semas, my love, as we blink away sleep, whisper our dreams, map out the day, settle late night sadness, share small regrets. When we miss our children, scold them to the moon. You kiss your mother with that mouth? Spin our untruths, cry in 1,000 types of beer, ride our rickety trains, seek salvation in poetry. So, Zoe selogumas, life to all of us. Zoe semas. That's for the new year. Hopefully 2021 will be better than 2020. I think that all Greek American children, and maybe all children that were brought up in a church going family, remember Good Friday. And that 2 or 3 hours when you had to be silent in the afternoon, that painful time for a child. So this poem was really based on Good Friday and those memories. Good Friday. 3 hours of silence, no radio, TV, music. Good Friday, the only day we ever sat on the plastic-covered couch in the unliving room, except for New Year's Day, when the Greek priest came to bless our immigrant house. Just kids, we got the shakes waiting for the rhythm to return, curtains to roll open, and the stillness to lift like an afternoon haze. Lord, we felt about to explode, holding in our sounds, curbing our addiction to outbursts, to brace ourselves for ear slaps and washing our mouths out with soap. Christos Anesti, Alithos Anesti. Sweet Jesus, allow us to make some noise. Anyway, let's move onward, more recent even. I have a poem here about going to Greek school for all of you who went to Greek school on Saturdays, and about learning the language. But my Greek school was basically figuring out how to skip school and go and play pool. So that's what this poem is about. Greek alphabet soup. Alpha, beta, gamma, delta. We couldn't wait to escape this Saturday morning Greek class, steal away to Mike's submarines, then down to Johnny's pool hall. Mrs. Pappas, the old crone, chased us down the dark halls, through the wooden doors into sunlight, screaming words in Greek they didn't teach us in class. Greek school and the church basement seemed more like a dungeon to us, hungry American boys. We sought out sandwiches and hot soup, then jumped on the last bus home, lied to our parents about all we had learned. Ta παιδιά agapun soupa. The children love soup. Alpha, beta, gamma, delta. This last Greek influenced poem, really it's sort of a mix of, I guess every American is a mixed breed, and I certainly came from different places, from the West Side in Buffalo, and then from the suburbs, and then part-time in Greece. So I was certainly a mix, and that's kind of what this is about, having a mixed upbringing. Where I'm from, too. I'm from clapboard and brick West Side Story alleys, a shark dancing to the streets, those tight unlocked paths I explored. I'm from a sweeter neighborhood in the suburbs, sports letters ironed on my sweater, and a clique of how very white of you friends. From the remotest island in Greece, too, so close to Turkey you could smell the spices, where blackened widows with their tight hair buns scurry to the bakery right after Sunday bells. I'm from wherever you want this to be, when and how you choose to remember me. I think what I would like to do is just read a couple of poems from my newest book. It just came out, called As a Man in the Moon, and the phrase is actually from a line in Hunchback of Notre Dame. And many of the poems in the book, I should explain, are based on, or let's say inspired by, old movies, because I love old movies, old black and white movies, or old poems. So a phrase or a line from a poem. This the cover of this book, I should point out, if you could see, I did this painting, and this painting was turned into the cover of As a Man in the Moon. So I'm particularly proud of this one. So I thought I would read something other than Greek-inspired poems. This first one that the title comes from is Quasimodo from the Hunchback of Notre Dame. And the epigraph is, "Why was I not made of stone like thee?" Like Quasimodo. To turn a deaf ear not enough to rid one of this past year's pain. The silent king of fools, you might say. Forgive those who abandoned, sent you to prison in the bell tower? Or is forgetting as high as one can climb? They cannot pray here. They are heathens to whom talking is like dancing. Somewhere inside, they must know love, but love sounds are buried by tinny bells. And now they try to seek forgiveness? There's not enough room in my stone heart. Even if allowed to escape this ruin, I'm as shapeless as a man in the moon. I think I will end this with a love poem inspired by a line by Pablo Neruda. This is one of those odd instances, because I know that Nico's going to ask me this. This is one of those odd instances where a poem just comes out and there's very little revision and it just kind of flows out. Does not often happen to me, but this is a good example of it. I love you in this way. I do. I love you in a way I don't find words often enough. I don't love you the way books say, forever repeating, before sonnets dared not rhyme, when fate was poetic and intimate. Still, I don't love you anywhere but here at home, held by night, inside a line's refusal to merge, dissipating dreams before dawn, leaving only anxious air, stars and wishes no longer wishable, fleeting and gone before the bluish moon surrenders. I don't love in daylight on a bench, in a breeze, smokeless and alone, as cold marble foreshadows what little time we may have. In left-handed ways, I love you. Don't know what it feels to be right. I only ask you stop. Understand what it means for us to love this way. Thank you for listening. I could go on forever, but I won't. But thank you so much. It was fun.
Thank you, Perry. I really enjoy your readings.
Thank you.
An ethnographic study, the poems related to your Greek background, with a lot of sociology in there, and very interesting. I'm very pleased about your concluding poem about Neruda,
Oh,
because growing up in Greece during the 70s, it was a moment when Greece was coming out from a dictatorship of 7 years, and Chile was entering. And it was we were very supportive of Aliente, the elected democratic government of Chile, and Neruda, of course, and later probably one of the greatest composers, the Greek Mikis Theodorakis. He has a huge cycle of songs based on Neruda's poetry, the Canto General. So it was very emotional, your conclusion for me, like most of your poems.
Thank you so much.
It is very interesting, your memories from your childhood and growing up. When you wrote those poems, you wrote them later in your adult life, or you were starting writing early in your life? How
So,
you started writing poetry? Yeah.
well, that's an interesting story. I came around to it. I wrote a little bit in my 20s and did not write again for a very long time. And I really did this body of work that I've done since I was 50. So I've done the 8 books and 2 CDs in 17 years. So I started late. I mean, I started writing poetry seriously late, 50 years old.
Yeah.
So
I understand, and I think poetry has its own time, and late or early, it doesn't work the same way we use it for other aspects of our life. So,
sure.
but I understand what you're saying about writing at a certain time and age. Also, uh, your tell us about your writing process. How you write the traditional pen and paper, pencils, computer.
Well, I always start out, first of all, I always have a pad with me. And so to jot down phrases or something that occurs to me out in the world. Then I always write in pencil on a yellow legal pad, the initial part, the rough draft, let's say. And then mostly because my handwriting is so bad, then I transfer it to the computer and I start writing there.
Mhm. Who are the first people to read your poems, your sketches,
Oh,
other than yourself? Yeah, who?
not many. I have a couple of close friends that I share my poems with, and we have a little group and a meeting that they help me with. This one woman, Gunilla Kester, who is the co-host of the reading series that I'm going to do tomorrow night, she helps me out. But most of the time, I'm pretty much on my own.
About the language question, because you use a lot of Greek expressions in your earlier poems.
How did I do? Okay.
Fantastic. And I would like
Okay.
to know how you kept the language in such a good tact, although you live in the States for so long.
Uh, when I grew up, our household was bilingual. My father spoke English to us. My mother spoke only Greek to us. So it was always half and half. Now I speak very little Greek, honestly, because there's no one left, really. And so there's really not many people to speak with, unless I happen to bump into an old timer or, someone at a wedding or a funeral, let's say, but not much Greek in my life anymore. But we were half and half when we were kids.
Mhm. It is very interesting what you said about Cavafy and the immigrant paradox that uh, Cavafy was a Greek in Alexandria and an Alexandrian in Greece, like Greek Americans. They are Greeks in the States and they're Americani or Americanakia.
Sure.
And it's very interesting what you said and how um, you said it in a very poetic language. But you in your writing you see that there is a Greek American community of poets. They can be considered as a body, as a collectivity, or the individual voices scattered all over the states.
Probably scattered all over the states. I don't know that there is such a community here. I don't know of any Greek American poets per se here, but I have read some throughout the states.
Um, what is your sense, your feelings, your thoughts about Greek poetry and Greek poets?
Well, first of all, I have trouble reading and writing Greek because I went to American schools, but I can struggle through reading Greek. Do you mean reading it in Greek?
No, no, no.
Oh, okay. The
Translation.
translations,
Yes.
translations. I read Cavafy and Yanis Ritsos. That's probably it. I have an interesting translation here of Cummings' poems translated into Greek, which is a pretty odd book. But I don't I like to, I'm not that familiar with them, but those people I know pretty well. I did he's not a poet, but I did my master's thesis years and years ago at UB on Kazantzakis. And so I tried to struggle through reading Kazantzakis. Very difficult for me, reading and writing Greek.
Of course, and also here in New York, we have established the Kazantzakis Society, and every year we have events.
Oh, wow.
And I'll send you the links. And recently, a friend of the Hellenic American Project, they donated a photograph by Kazantzakis, and we have it in to our.
Oh, nice. Oh, nice.
State. And probably we're going to expand on your initial thoughts and work on Kazantzakis. But Kazantzakis, it is probably the most translated author in the States and widely read, I think. Unfortunately, through his work and all the productions, a very strong image that lasts for many years. It is the Zorba about Greeks. Do you how do you respond to that, to the Zorba image of
Oh God, that's a pretty good question. I enjoy it, but well, example, reading the book, I much prefer reading the book than seeing the movie. And as much as people love Anthony Quinn, his Greek is pretty bad in that movie. I don't know if you agree, but it's not really authentic. Now, Irene Pappas, she's Greek. She speaks Greek well, but not Anthony Quinn. So that kind of gives me a little edge. And some, I don't know, some of the ways some of the people are portrayed, I'm not sure that it's realistic that when someone dies, all the widows run into the house and steal all of their possessions like they do with Bubulina. And that, I'm not sure if that really happens. I've never seen it.
Yeah, but
so I don't know. I think maybe some exaggerations there.
Yeah, because I want to know if all the stereotypes about Greeks how that influence your writing. And how, because you talk about growing up Greek in a very poetic language, bringing the images, and if the stereotypes in the American society about Greek images influence you, or you wanted to respond to that through your poetry?
I think I wanted to respond to that. I know what it's like to grow up Greek American. I certainly did. Sometimes it differs very much from what you see there. I don't. Yeah, there are stereotypes there. But there are so many wonderful things about being Greek. So I don't know. I'm not sure the answer to that.
Excellent.
We're all stereotypes, I think, in some way.
Yes. Tell us about your future plans, about other books, other CDs.
Okay.
You have a series of organizing poetry events also.
Well, I've set up 4 different poetry venues in Buffalo over the years. This is maybe the last one, but we'll see. Plans for the future. I have this reading in January for the Buffalo Corner series that I'm going to read from just exclusively from this book. I'd like to be able to think that by summer we'll be traveling again, because what I've been doing in the summer is setting up these little reading trips for myself. For example, Woodstock, New Paltz, Albany, Schenectady, New York City. I used to go to Cornelia Cafe, that type of thing. So I love setting up a little sort of a tour for myself and just reading in different places and meeting people. I'm hoping that by summer, I can come to Queens College. I hope.
You're welcome.
I hope. So that's on my agenda. And then reading, I want to read as much as possible because I never have time to do that with school. One thing I didn't mention is I'm retiring. I'm going to retire at Christmas time. So that'll be very different for me. But the best thing of all is, as I told you earlier, Nico, is my daughter told me that she is going to have a baby and I'm going to be a papu. And so I'm going to enjoy that more
Congratulations.
than anything. That's the best poem of all.
Yes, I agree. Again, congratulations for both your retirement and, of course, the happy news about.
Thank you so much. I
good luck.
hope I can come there soon. I hope things loosen up and we can do some kind of reading or something.
If you had one or two thoughts about new poets writing in this difficult era, what will you be your thoughts or your advice?
About writing in this difficult era, about me writing?
No, but the young generation who starts to discover poetry and read poetry and probably write poetry.
Are you asking what my advice is to them?
Yes,
How to
yes,
pursue it?
yes.
Oh God. When I teach creative writing, Nico, I tell them, first of all, they say, well, what do you suggest? And I say, read everything. Read, not just poetry, but read everything. And of course, read every kind of poet. That's one thing. The other thing that I suggest to them is, besides reading, is go out and hear as many people as you can. Go to readings, go and hear people, different kinds of poets, ones that you like, ones that you don't like, so you can learn what you want to do and what you don't want to do. So my biggest advice is probably read and hear people, because nobody writes in a vacuum. You really have to hear some other people and what they're doing.
Excellent, excellent advice. Unless you want to conclude with one more poem, we want to thank you.
What kind of poem? You tell me a subject matter.
From your latest book.
Okay.
From your recent book, because this relationship, and also how come you pick up painting?
I don't know.
You see the
I guess I always had in my head that I would like to try, and I knew I never did. And so when this all started, I took paint. I found someone, I took some private lessons, and I tried it out, and I said, well, I'm sort of, here's some little, the book cover, here's a little Reese picture that I did. I'm not very good, but I find it very relaxing. And if you ask, well, what do you do? I noticed on your list of questions, you ask sometimes, well, what do you do when you get writer's block? And for me, it is read, watch an old movie, listen to music, paint, something that's creative, that's not writing poetry. And that usually shakes something loose. I find that it does. So I like it. I'm not very good. This, by the way, is a photograph of the Isle of Ignusa that I took when I was there. So anyway, let's see what we have here we could end with. Well, I suppose we have to do a pandemic poem. This is the epigraph for this is Contemplating T.S. Eliot During a Pandemic. Coffee spoons. It would be much easier if I could measure time in coffee or cigarettes. I go outside every hour, light up, contemplate the minutes, sift through the grounds to figure how much sunlight is left to endure before night crawls in and darkness moves so slow. Coffee won't help. Smokes will surely kill me. Right here on virtual Earth, life has changed, lacking in social graces. And it's recommended we all learn protection. cover our skin from lips to toes. Caffeine, tobacco, or kiss, I'll cut a merciful hole in my mask. My pandemic poem.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Perry Nicholas, for
Oh,
your reading.
thank you so much for having me. It was a great pleasure.
And
I hope we can do it in person soon
soon.
in the real world.
And we will.
Yes, thank
Poetry
you.
will connect us again
Good,
soon.
good. Ying, thank you.